The ratings are up for AEW Dynamite and NXT. We talk about them next on the Squared Circle Psycho Babble. My name is Michael Valenti. Joining me is Ralph Valenti. Ralph, some good news as both AEW Dynamite and NXT are up for the second consecutive week in the ratings, and it truly shows that these shows have been good and the ratings are starting to show for it.
Yeah, I think it's really a testament to the effort and the work that both shows have been putting in. I mean, AEW going into right around the corner from Revolution. I think that they're trying to make a statement that they are, trying to put out the best quality product that they possibly can going into the pay-per-view.
Mm-hmm.
On NXT, I think that they've made a big change in the pace, that the way that they're delivering their program, especially coming out of the pay-per-view. And I feel like right now, both shows have at least a majority of the show that people can say that they can get invested in, which you couldn't necessarily say that week in and week out, especially for NXT. But the past couple of weeks have been really good, I think.
Yeah, the follow-up from NXT TakeOver Vengeance Day have been incredible. Great follow-ups with Adam Cole and Undisputed Era. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. Also, the fact of Santos Escobar and Karrion Kross had a very good match. Character development. Yeah. A whole lot more. I mean, there was so much good on NXT. AEW Dynamite, as you mentioned, building up for AEW Revolution. Such really, really good stuff. And for those that are curious what those numbers actually were, AEW Dynamite up from a 0.31 to a 0.35 in the 18 to 49 demographic, 831,000 total viewers, which is up from last week's 747,000 total viewers. NXT goes up from a 0.16 to a 0.18 in the 18 to 49 demographic. And they also go up in total viewership, 713,000 total viewers to 734,000 total viewers. So, Ralph, let's start things off with AEW Dynamite. Quick squash match with Jon Moxley against Ryan Nemeth. But he talks about how the exploding barbed wire match is going to feed his addiction, basically. He's a masochist, really. He just loves pain. He loves pain, and he gets so close to the fire that he just loves it. I really love this promo that he does because he's putting over the danger of the exploding barbed wire match as opposed to making it sound goofy that kind of Kenny Omega did last week when he announced that this is the match that they're having.
I think they're going to put to bed any suggestions that this is going to end up being some type of goofy type of match at the pay-per-view for sure. Moxley did a great job selling not only just the match itself, but his character as well. He's always been really good at promos, but I think the fact that he's given the liberties that he's given at AEW essentially to go out there and be creative, I think that it suits him well, because I think he's one of the guys that can really speak from the heart and not have it come across as like corny or goofy. And he just resonates with people, So I mean, immediately it's just one of those promos that you really kind of can connect with. Now, granted, he comes across as like an absolute maniac for trying to say that he's addicted to this. He's going into the match knowing that this could potentially be a setup for Kenny Omega and he could potentially lose. It almost had a tonality to it that like this is his farewell match or like a swan song type match.
Right.
And he's okay with that. But you know what? For the guy that should be feared the most is the guy that's not scared to lose anything, or the guy that has nothing to lose. Moxley's chasing the title here. Moxley's a sick fuck, for lack of a better way to say it. Omega is the guy that's got to prove everything. He's the one that isn't necessarily known to work these style of matches, and he's calling Jon Moxley out to work his type of match. So I love the promo, the match. The match was what it was. I mean, but the promo to me was really the thing that stuck out, not just on this segment, but maybe throughout the night. That was one of the things that stuck with me.
Right. What do you think about the segment that was on later on in the show where Kenny Omega was building this Moxley exterminator chamber?
Tell me if you had shades of Undertaker building the giant casket. Was that for Kamala?
Yes, that was for Kamala for the, I believe, 92 Survivor Series.
Yeah, I mean, granted, look, not alike at all. I mean, it really didn't resemble one another, but something about the way that it was set up, and Kenny you saw his back at first, and then, I don't know, it just kind of reminded me of that.
It was the hammering that Kenny was doing. Yeah. It was the same gesture as when Undertaker was hammering the nails into the coffin. That's really what it was, or striking the iron or whatever it was. That's what it was. But I don't know. It came off a little goofy for me. But Moxley
Kenny tends to come across as a little goofy and a little over the top. Like he doesn't come across as like a. Okay, you watch Batman movies, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
Bane is a badass, you know, and nobody's going to deny that, and he's meant to be taken seriously. But if you compare him to like the goofy type of Joker from, you know, I think it was Don West, was it, that played
Adam
Batman
West.
in the TV, Adam West on the TV show. So that's kind of like the way Kenny comes across, and I don't know if it's his mannerisms or his tonality or his delivery, but he doesn't come across as like this evil mastermind badass type villain. He's kind of like the goofy, I don't know.
Yeah. But maybe this maybe this exploding barbed wire death match will change things. But some guy that looks like a creepy villain that is actually being portrayed as a babyface all of a sudden starts off NXT in a non-title match against Johnny Gargano, and that's Dexter Lumis. And I don't know what trance that he has on the members of the Way, but Austin Theory and Indi Hartwell are completely infatuated with Dexter Lumis. What do you think of the story progression with Austin Theory getting Stockholm Syndrome, and now Indi Hartwell has some weird crush on Dexter Lumis all of a sudden? It's a weird dynamic, but I'm kind of digging it.
I just think they're all so much better than this. You know, I think Dexter Lumis is good in the right feud with the right guy. I don't know if Johnny Gargano's that guy, at least not in this Johnny Gargano. If you gave me face Johnny Gargano when Johnny Gargano was at his peak, and Dexter Lumis, who's supposed to be like this menacing, like Michael Myers type guy, I can get into that. Right now you got Johnny Gargano, who to me, I'm just not into this version of him or the Way. Austin Theory to me has a ton of potential, and it's just kind of wasting him in this goofy group. I mean, I don't know, but that's me. I'm not a fan of the group. So, you know, I'm not into this feud. Maybe not as much as you are. So
I mean, at first I thought it was a little obnoxious and Johnny Gargano could do better. But in the last couple of weeks, I think he's starting to hone in the character that he's trying to portray. And I think the dynamic of Austin Theory not just being a sidekick, and the fact that Dexter Lumis kidnapped him and he's having all these weird like side effects where he can't do the high five on the right side, or he just is, like I said, infatuated by Dexter Lumis. Now Indi Hartwell has a crush on him. It's a weird dynamic, but I think it kind of works because it puts over Dexter Lumis without him ever talking. And that's what's great about his character, is the fact that he doesn't have to talk to get his character over. But I will admit, the Dexter Lumis character could be doing a little bit more. I think NXT could build him up a lot better. But unfortunately, for a while, there kind of wasn't much for him coming off of that Cameron Grimes story. But now it seems like they're kicking it back into gear with him.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested to see where they go with this. It's difficult because, like we said, like he doesn't talk. There's only so much you're going to be able to do with a character like that. He's kind of one dimensional, and they've done different things to try and build different layers to his character, like, you know, drawing the pictures and trying to be creepy in that way, and you know, that can only go so far. And I'm not saying he has to go out there and cut promos or anything like that, because it wouldn't even necessarily fit his character. But, you know, when The Undertaker was going out there and not cutting promos, and he was just this big creepy figure, at least he had like a pallbearer there to cut promos for him, you know? So I don't know, maybe he just needs something like that. But for right now, I mean, he's doing fine.
Yeah. I mean, there's another guy that was known for not talking ever, and that is Sting. People wondering, is this storyline ever going to develop with Team Taz and Darby Allin? Last week, we saw him get powerbombed. This week, I feel like we finally got some development that people have been waiting for 2 months, Ralph. So after the Ricky Starks and Brian Cage match versus the Varsity Blondes, which was a very good tag team match, Sting is out there on a video package where he's driving Darby Allin in the body bag. Then he comes out with that body bag, and Tony Schiavone is like, "Who is that? Is that Darby Allin?" And I think 9 out of 10 people assumed, like, of course it's Darby Allin, you idiot. Who else could it be? Well, little do we know, it was not. It was in fact Taz's son Hook in the body bag. Darby Allin comes in from the zip line and beats down Team Taz. I love this post-match segment. It's finally something that we've been waiting for with him. What are your thoughts on this?
I loved it too. I loved everything from the video package to the subtle swerve with Hook being in the body bag, which was a nice little subtle thing too. Darby Allin coming in on the zip line. I mean, I thought, I didn't even like it just because it was well done. I liked it because of the little subtle things that were built into it. You know, the video package was great. I love the video package.
Mm-hmm.
Bringing Hook out in the body bag, I thought that was a nice touch. And then Darby obviously coming in. For an older guy that hasn't seen a lot of action, Sting certainly looked good in a limited role, so that's always encouraging. The one thing that I wish we could have got, because I thought that place would have just erupted, was Sting doing the thing where he beats his chest and howls. I don't think he did it. I was waiting for him to do it because that would have put like the little cherry on top to get the fans just to that extra level of, you know, Sting just kind of like proving that he's here and he's capable. Because that's what everyone was wondering. Like, what's this guy capable of? He hasn't wrestled. He's got a bad neck. He's taken power bombs after all of the rumors going around that he shouldn't even be taking any bumps and he's going to work cinematic matches. So, you know, I'm not going to sit here and say that I don't have any concerns with him taking these bumps, but everything he did last night looked safe, but it also looked really good. So, I thought it was great. I loved it.
So I totally agree. He looked really good. He did not look like a 61 turning 62-year-old in the ring, as, you know, this whole age thing comes about. And I know there's arguments with, oh, these guys shouldn't wrestle. These guys shouldn't wrestle. And here's my take on it. I don't care if you're 47. I don't care if you're 49. I don't care if you're 50. I don't care if you're 54. I don't care if you're 61. I don't care if you're 67. If you could still go out there, have a wrestling match that's halfway decent and carry a story, go out there, have a decent match and carry a story. You know, this whole thing about, oh, AEW's bringing back old wrestlers and WWE's putting these old guys in the main event spots and they're not building young stars. Well, eventually those young stars are going to be the older talent that you're going to say, oh, they need to, it's going to be this vicious cycle. So whoever is good enough to have those matches, regardless of age, put them in those matches.
Were those same critics saying the same thing about Ricky Steamboat when he had that match against Jericho? Remember when there was that whole bit with Mickey Rourke and Steamboat? I mean, nobody was looking forward to that match, myself included. I'm sure when they announced that match, I was like, you know, what the hell are they going to do with this? Like, they're wasting Jericho. Steamboat came out, and not only it was so good that the fans were chanting, "You still got it," and I think they had a rematch the next night on Raw, which was also good. So, yeah, I agree. I mean, this whole age thing. If you can go, you can go. And if you can go, you have a spot in pro wrestling, in my opinion. So I don't know. I just too many talking points because there's so much tribalism between who wants to be a fan of AEW, who wants to be a fan of NXT. Let's just be fans and enjoy the shows. Exactly.
Now, when it comes to someone that is a young star, we got to talk about someone that just came to the scene in NXT, and that's Zoey Stark. She comes in this match against Io Shirai. A really showcase match for her. Maybe this to the likes of John Cena and Kurt Angle, maybe in the women's division, where she really shined last night. Couple of blemishes, but nothing that was out of the ordinary for two wrestlers that have never worked together. So I thought this was a really good match, really showcased Zoey Stark. And I think she's going to be a bright future for the NXT women's division. And after that, Toni Storm versus Io Shirai is confirmed for 2 weeks for the NXT Women's Championship. What do you think of this whole thing? What do you think of Zoey Stark and her match against Io Shirai? Are you looking forward to Toni Storm and Io Shirai?
Definitely looking forward to Toni Storm and Io Shirai. You know my rule with when they try to do these things, and it's not just an NXT thing. I said it about AEW too. Zoey Stark's look good, but she also had a really competitive match against the women's champion. So I'm not going to be critical of it now, but what are they going to do with her? Are they going to plan to push her? Is she going to have a spot? Are they going to try to elevate her? Like when you go back and look at, you know, the 1-2-3 kid pinning Razor Ramon back in the day, that obviously, or actually he was the Lightning Kid then. Right. Then he became the 1-2-3 kid and he started to get pushed a little bit better. I'm all for the competitive match as long as it leads to somewhere and it has some type of meaning. If it means they're going to try to promote someone, even if it's where they try and they don't, that person doesn't necessarily get to where they want them to get to, at least they're trying to put him in those higher profiled spots.
Right.
I don't like when the champions go out there and have competitive matches just for the sake of having a competitive match against somebody who's a relatively no name. So the match itself, very good. Zoey Starks looked very good. I want to see where she goes from here. And if it's 3 weeks where we don't see her and she's not doing anything, then okay, well, what was the point?
Yeah, I see where you're coming from with that, but I think at the end of the day, I think they made that match because they know they're going to be pushing her. So if that's the case, then I'm all for it. Let them push Zoey Stark. And I mean, she's part of this huge NXT class, the biggest NXT class coming in, the biggest women's class coming in. And eventually the women that are on NXT now are going to have to go to the main roster. Obviously, we heard Rhea Ripley's going to Raw this past Monday. So who takes Rhea's spot? Maybe this is Zoey Stark that takes that spot. So, and this was the start of it. But we had Xia Li beat Casey Catanzaro. And then the Grizzly Young Veterans beating Drake Maverick and Killian Dane. And on Dynamite, Hangman Page beats Isaiah Cassidy in a solid match. Matt Hardy gets ejected from that match out of frustrations, vows to beat down the Dark Order one by one, starting with Alan Angels, who's thrown off the stage through the timekeeper's table. But let's talk about the next match after that. Jake Hager versus Brandon Cutler. The match itself, it was what it was, but it helped build to the post-match thing where the Young Bucks come out after Santana, Ortiz, and Wardlow beat down on Brandon Cutler. Jericho and MJF are called out, and we find out that they're in the back beating up Papa Buck. And Papa Buck, I'm sorry. This was a good segment, but I laughed my ass off at Papa Buck acting. It was so bad acting. It was such bad acting. It was like in a slapstick comedy where they're trying to beat up somebody and he just won't die. And he like over exaggerates his dying, like, oh, and he just like slowly falls down the wall.
You know the scene in Dracula Dead and Loving It when he's sticking the stake in the vampire's heart, and there's blood shooting everywhere, and he's like, "She's almost dead, just one more." It's like, dude, know your cue and stay down. The guy's bloody. You got two professional wrestlers whipping you into the back of a truck. It's like, dude, it's like the Undertaker in his prime. He just won't stay down. I'm surprised they didn't pan to his face while he's lying on the ground. He didn't sit up like he was the Undertaker at one point because he just wasn't.
Well, he rolled his eyes like the Undertaker.
I noticed that. I mean, yeah. I mean, I thought the segment was fine. I'll take John Cena Sr. over this guy any day.
Oh
of the
my
week,
God.
But, it must run in the family. I mean, you got the Young Bucks who go out there every week and act like the Mega Powers, albeit they're a quarter of the size of the Mega Powers back in the 80s.
Yes.
But, in any event, yeah. I don't even know what'd you call him? Papa Buck?
Papa Buck. That's what they call him. Papa Buck.
Okay. Well, yeah, he served his purpose. I mean, at least we can now have him in some type of comedic role like we have the Miz's father.
Who wins in a wrestling match if it's ever booked? Papa Buck or George Mizanin?
Oh, Christ. Well, George Mizanin looks like he either knows how to throw hands like an old school boxer, like the type you saw back in like the 1800s with his stance, or he just couldn't fight his way out of a paper bag. But
it's so true.
I'm gonna go with Mr. Miz because the Miz right now is the WWE champion. So
but the Young Bucks are the tag team champions in AEW. So there's championships in both families. And at least
Miz has a hotter wife, so I'll go with that. I'll go with Mr. Miz.
Well, I don't know Nick Jackson's wife, but Matt Jackson's wife is pretty attractive. But I mean, it's Maurice we're talking about here. But all right, let's move on back to NXT. Karrion Kross versus Santos Escobar in this non-DQ match or no DQ match. I thought it was very chaotic. Starts in the parking lot, goes through the performance center. You're throwing people through the plexiglass. I think, is it just me? Or does Karrion Kross look more of a badass in street clothes than he does in his wrestling attire?
I didn't really take notice to that, but I'm sure you could have a point there. I
Yeah,
guess we'll leave it up to the people to vote on in the comments section.
I feel like when he is in his street clothes, he looks 20 pounds heavier than when he's in his wrestling trunks. I don't know why.
He looks bigger.
He looks bigger.
No, I guess that's a fair point. Yeah. He's certainly not a smaller guy. And I was even surprised because, I think that a lot of people just get the general feeling that guys that work in NXT are just naturally smaller in comparison to the guys on the main roster.
Mm-hmm.
But, Edge isn't the biggest guy, but when he was face to face with Edge, what was that, 3 weeks ago? I think, Karrion Kross certainly looked like he was, tall enough, had the same, had a size that
he deserved to be
if he went
there.
to the main roster. Yeah. Yeah. So, and he's just an intimidating dude. I mean,
yeah, he is. And it really showed in this match. I mean, you have him throwing around Joaquin Wilde and Raul Mendoza, and he's throwing people through plexiglass, power bombing them. I mean, he looked really good in this match, and he sold his arm injury. Santos Escobar in the losing effort, he looked, as good as he can. Do you have a problem with him losing the match, knowing he's the Cruiserweight champion? And also, I mean, let's not forget, Johnny Gargano lost earlier in the night as North American champion. So do you have a problem with two champions losing in one night in non-title matches?
No, I don't have a problem with Escobar losing, especially considering, we just talked about it. I mean, Escobar is not a small cruiserweight, but in size comparison alone, I mean, Karrion Kross is a much bigger guy, and he plays that badass role. You can't have him lose to Escobar. That being said, I am surprised that Escobar lost pretty much clean. I mean, there was no, you could say that, okay, it was no DQ, but it wasn't like the no DQ led to the outcome of the match. Like, it wasn't like he hit him with some obscure weapon and I mean, that's my only thing. Like, I just felt like I was shocked that Escobar actually lost clean. Cause I don't know where they could potentially go from here unless Escobar jumps him next week and they get some type of revenge and they set up a rematch. Cause I thought some way Escobar would end up beating Kross with the help of, the rest of the group, but it didn't happen that way. So I was a little surprised by that.
I mean, I am and I'm not. I mean, you do have the 3-man advantage, but I feel like the dynamic of the match felt like the end of an action movie where you have the hero going up against the bad villain and he's got his henchmen there and he fights them all off. And in the end, the hero still wins. So I'm not too concerned. I mean, Karrion Kross is obviously the guy that they're going to push, but let me just say this with Santos Escobar, I think there's some money to be made with this guy. Keep him with Legado del Fantasma. And as soon as he drops a cruiserweight title, I don't know if there's much left for him in NXT. I bring him up to the main roster, bring back Andrade, and have them have a super faction of, even bring Angel Garza back into the mix. I think they would have a great faction, and Santos Escobar can be the mouthpiece of it and the promo guy and really put that team over. And you can have, him go into the mid-card title position or him tag with Andrade, or, you could do so many combinations that it would really, really work, I think, and help bring out Andrade to do something on the main roster.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a shame Andrade's not being used at all. I don't get that, but
you know what's a shame, Ralph? The fact that Britt Baker lost last night. That is a real shame. Don't get me wrong.
Rose is the booking of Nyla Rose since the inception of AEW has been my absolute mind-boggling. I think a lot of times people focus on AEW's women's division on not being where it needs to be because just the matches are not where you would want them to be, and because they're green. But the booking is terrible. The booking for their women's division, tournament or no tournament, is just not good. It makes no sense. They don't ever follow up on it, whether that's because they're not given time. But that's my low light for the week. I mean, I can't make sense of why Britt Baker did not win this match. Nyla Rose has been booked atrociously ever since the inception of AEW. I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't
go as far as atrociously. I mean, she she did win the AEW Women's Championship. But
when's the last time you've seen her do something special? She was booked with the highlight of her career is probably is winning the title and then working with Vicky Guerrero for a little bit. Like, when's the last time you've seen her do anything that meant anything to justify her winning this match? Like, they don't use her correctly.
I could make the argument too, though, that they don't use Britt Baker right. Like Britt
No,
Baker,
no,
the
they
fact
don't.
that Britt Baker has still not been AEW Women's Champion when she was, put as like the poster girl for the women's division is mind-boggling. And yes, I understand they want to push Riho, they want to push Hikaru Shida, and they're great wrestlers. And Riho has, I guess, proven that she could be somewhat of a ratings draw. But Britt Baker should be the face of this division and should be on a weekly basis on AEW. And they put her on, they take her off. She has that big win against Thunder Rosa, only to lose here. Now, let's hope that this progresses something where she loses. Eventually, Thunder Rosa wins the tournament, wins the AEW Women's title off of Shida, and then they revisit Britt Baker where she could take the title off of Thunder Rosa. Hopefully, that's where this goes. I don't know if whoever wins between Riho and Thunder Rosa beats Nyla Rose, but if they go back to Riho and Nyla Rose again, I mean, we've already seen it, 3 times since AEW started, and they've had good matches, but I think it's Thunder Rosa's tournament to lose at this point. And don't get me wrong, a lot of people were praising this match, and I thought at first it was a little clunky and a little slow, but towards the end, it was a great finish. But I think the wrong person won. I honestly think that Britt Baker should have won this match. No matter how you do it, Britt Baker should have won this match. I think she should have won the tournament, personally.
I'm not even against Nyla Rose winning, per se. Because I think that somebody like her should go deep into a tournament.
Right.
Because she should be booked strongly. So she deserves to get a win, but I don't think if Britt Baker is in this tournament, I don't think she should have been eliminated. At least not now. I think that they should still, even if they're going to revisit Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa down the road, you still got to tease that one way or another. I don't care how they do it. Like, cause if you go, what are we like 2 or 3 weeks now, maybe more removed from that win? Like it starts to lose its meaning every single week if you're not doing anything with Britt Baker that has any momentum. Like that's the thing. And I don't know. It's just, I know this tournament is really supposed to help cement and establish the women's division. I don't think last night they did any favors for it.
No, I mean, the matches have been good. I mean, they've been good so far. At least in the US bracket, from what I've seen. I haven't watched any of the Japanese bracket, but what I've seen on the US side and on Dynamite, they've had some really good matches. And this match was good, but well, I mean, it all depends on how they follow up with this. If they follow up with either Nyla or Thunder Rosa winning this tournament and take the title off of Shida, then I think it would be the right thing at this point. But if it's where someone like Yuka Sakazaki ends up winning and then Hikaru Shida beats her anyway, I think this did nothing but create filler for 2 months. Or a month, I should say.
Yeah, I'd probably agree. Maybe Michael Nakazawa can debut in the tournament next week.
And pull a Harvey Whippleman or Santina Morella.
Maybe. You never know.
All right. Well, speaking of Britt Baker, her boyfriend, Adam Cole, did some very terrible things. I mean, terrible things to Kyle O'Reilly last week. So bad that people actually thought that Kyle O'Reilly had a diabetic seizure last week. Turns out, no, it was just injuries caused by the stairs after the brain buster, spine buster, whatever it's called. I'm drawing a blank on what the move is called right now. But he comes out, talks about why he did what he did, and he's feeling so apologetic about it. He wants to face Kyle O'Reilly, but he's not here. So then Roderick Strong comes out and tries to, tell him, look what you did. You ruined the brotherhood of the Undisputed Era. Finn Balor comes out and tackles Adam Cole and beats him up. Then at the end, Roddy Strong is in the ring with Adam Cole. Adam Cole is crying. Roddy Strong is telling him, you're my brother. And then bam, right in the testicular fortitude, Ralph, low blowing Roderick Strong, completely ending the Undisputed Era. Well executed, much better executed than how I just told the story. But I think it was time for the Undisputed Era to split up. We need to see these guys be on their own and see how they're going to progress as singles competitors and see how the story's really going to develop, because I think Kyle O'Reilly and Adam Cole has the potential to have that Gargano Ciampa feud that we had 3-4 years ago.
Yeah, and for Kyle O'Reilly, I mean, coming off of his matches with Finn Balor, that really kind of put him on the map as just not, the sidekick from the Undisputed Era, but kind of cementing him as a guy who can go out there and work and be a main eventer. I think that this is probably going to be his best feud because he can really get invested in it. He can make it feel personal. I think that him and Adam Cole are going to go out there and have some really good matches, and this feud's going to get interesting, especially when you consider this. We still don't know where Bobby Fish is going to align in all of this. We haven't seen him. We haven't heard from him. I think he's injured still?
Yeah, he's always hurt. So I don't even know if he's going to be part of this story anymore.
I think he's got to be. I mean, you got to write the guy off some way, whether or he will have to play a role in this ultimately somewhere down the line. I'm not sure where or how, but I think that Adam Cole last night did his thing. He came across as convincing in every aspect of his promo and his delivery, and it was great. Finn Balor, that'll be interesting to see if he ends up feuding with Adam Cole and how Kyle O'Reilly fits in that whole thing. Pat McAfee's been pretty vocal on social media too about Adam Cole. So does he come back? Is there any type of tie-in with that storyline? So there's a lot of different ways they can go with this, but definitely intriguing. And I like the way they're building it up since the pay-per-view. It
really was. And I think with all the hype of figuring out why Adam Cole did what he did, I think they paid it off. And I think those that watched NXT last night got what they needed. And if they are, they're invested in this, I believe. And that's going to just help with, them being watching it next week and help with the ratings and whatever. If for those that care about the ratings, this was great. This was a great way to close off the show. And they used all 8 minutes of that overrun for this segment because they knew AEW, they're going to be done at 10 o'clock. People want to watch this Adam Cole thing. So I don't know how the minute by minute thing was from 10 o'clock to 10:08, but I bet you a lot of people clicked over to see if Adam Cole was going to explain himself and if that overrun. So that was great execution by NXT on that part.
Yeah, I certainly agree. But NXT always has an overrun, so.
They do. Sometimes it's longer than others, but on the main event of AEW Dynamite, though, Ralph, Lance Archer advances to AEW Revolution in the Face of the Revolution ladder match where the winner will get a title shot for the TNT Championship. So Lance Archer now joins Cody Rhodes, Scorpio Sky, and Penta as he beat Rey Fenix. And Ralph, I must admit, we see these big guys versus smaller guy matches a lot, and there's one of two ways these work: the right way and the wrong way. The right way is the big guy looks dominant and physical, while the small guy uses his quickness, agility, and intelligence to try to maneuver his way and catch the big guy off guard. Or the wrong way, where the small guy just gets his moves in and the big guy just sells for him for no reason. I feel like this was the former. This is the right way to do it. Archer and Rey Fenix had great chemistry together. I, for the most part, thought that the psychology was definitely there, especially in the beginning where Lance Archer just throws down Rey Fenix anytime he's trying to do those stupid flips in the ring where it's like, dude, you're wasting too much time. It slams him right down. And Archer, for the third week in a row, I thought delivered really well in the main event and really shined. And I'm rooting for him to win the ladder match, in my opinion, right now.
Yeah, he's probably got the most momentum going into this of anybody else. I mean, last night, I think was probably one of the better performances we've seen from Lance Archer, if not the best. It's always good to see Jake Roberts actually do something at ringside. I mean, I know that AEW, a lot of people praise him for having managers, but the managers don't ever really get involved. So it was good to see Jake Roberts have, albeit it was a small interference, but
Right.
an interference nonetheless. Rey Fenix is a maniac. That guy, a lot of times you're going to see guys like do the tope suicida, land on their feet. Not him.
He'll dive through Daly's place if he has to.
And that's the thing. Like, you want to be able to, and him and Darby, I mean, two of the smaller guys that are willing to just go out there and just lay it all on the line, which just makes for a good match, especially in a match like this, where, as you pointed out, you got the big guy and the small guy dynamic, which is always one of my more favorite type of style match, as long as it's worked correctly. And this was very good. Archer looked great. He looked dominant, even, and Phoenix looked good, even a losing effort. So I thought they both did a really good job.
Yeah, and I wasn't sure how it was going to get approached because, like, they're both baby faces right now, but they were recently heels and stuff like that. So I wasn't sure if Archer was going to kind of play a heel here, but it seems like at the end, they both are on good terms, good match, good sportsmanship. So Lance Archer keeps this babyface thing going, and it, gets me questioning here. They have 4 guys in this match that are all baby faces. Cody, Scorpio, Penta, now Lance Archer. And then next week, it's Max Caster against 10 from the Dark Order. So does Max Caster get put in just to add some heat and some heels to this match?
Yeah. And isn't there one mystery guy that's getting revealed at Revolution?
I don't know. I see, here's what I thought was going to happen, because they announced that 10 and Caster were going to be on next week. But they didn't announce a second match, but they didn't announce what they were going to do with the 6th man. So as they were, hinting that TV time was running out, I thought they were going to have a time limit draw. And then the time limit draw, they were going to be like, oh, what happens? Find out next week when we decide who should be in the match between Lance Archer and Rey Fenix. And then it's decided that both of them get put in because no one lost. So they'll both get put in as 5 and 6. But that didn't happen. And what are your thoughts on, did they lay their cards too easily with how this match finished by just laying it in there? Like, TV time is running out, so it felt like, yeah, the match is going to end, rather than making it a time limit draw?
Well, I don't think you necessarily need to do the time limit draw, but I don't think that the commentary should, if you're not going to go with the time limit draw, why draw attention to the fact that the show is drawing to an end? Especially considering this. Look, most wrestling fans have been conditioned to the fact that, WWE networking, like the way that WWE runs their show, it goes over. Like, a majority of the time, like, if they need to go over 10 minutes, WWE is going to go over 10 minutes. And because that so many fans have had exposure to that product over the course of however many years, they're conditioned to not necessarily pay attention to what time it is, because they don't, they know that time is not really going to dictate the outcome of a match. So by having the commentary team point out that, okay, well, we're running out of time here, you can build suspense if you're going to go with the draw, but you're only kind of tipping your hand, like you said, that, okay, well, we're going to get this match ending very soon, probably when somebody lands the next big move. So, I mean, I don't get the point of pointing it out. I certainly don't watch Dynamite and look at the clock and say, okay, well, this match is probably going to end soon because of what time it is. So why draw attention to it? I'm focused on the match, and I'm sure most people are focused on the match and not the time.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. And I think what they should do, and they did this early on, and I don't know why they don't do it anymore, have Justin Roberts just say 10 minutes remaining, 5 minutes remaining. And, like, that's where you build the suspense, where it's like subliminally told how much time is left in the time limit. But they don't do that anymore, I don't think.
Speaking of Justin Roberts, what was his issue last night?
What do you mean?
Last night, when he introduced Jon Moxley, it was as if it was his last night on Dynamite. He's never going to work in pro wrestling again. It was the most gut-gurgling Jon Moxley announcement. Did you notice that? Am I the only one?
I didn't notice it. I wasn't paying attention too much to it, I'll be honest with you.
It was like he reached from the Netherlands of his bowels to ensure that he was giving the most prominent Jon Moxley announcement. It's like, dude, it's Jon Moxley on an episode of Dynamite. Like, chill out a bit. I don't know.
But they got to make him. They got to make him feel special. Like Jon Moxley has the Jon Moxley intro, and Cody has the, really involved entrance. So that's what they got to do. But all right, Ralph. So we have reviewed both shows. We talked about the ratings. So now what's left is what show was better this week? AEW Dynamite or NXT?
This is tough because both shows I thought really did quite a bit. I thought they were both good, and I thought they both had a lot of good character development. I'm going to say that I enjoyed NXT better this week.
Really?
Dynamite was good, but I think as good as some of the matches were and as good as some of the highlights were, like the Karrion Kross match to me was really good. I still am digging the stuff with Adam Cole. I like the Io Shirai match. Lance Archer match was very good. Wasn't high on the Britt Baker match. I'm going to take away 2 points for Justin Roberts and Orange Cassidy for just being ridiculous. So I'm going to go with NXT.
Orange Cassidy didn't even do anything.
He's writing love notes to Miro, which, Miro should look at his contract really closely and see if he can get out of that. Go back to being Rusev. I'll take crappy marriage. Well, I guess it doesn't matter where he goes. He's just going to do crappy wedding storylines. So
yeah, I think at this point, Miro has not gotten better since going to AEW, and the promo last night just proves some guys need scripted promos. But with that said, I am going to disagree with you. I am going with AEW Dynamite this week. I think this week that first hour flew right by and had a lot involved with it. And then you had the second hour that gave a lot of time to the women. And while I was not a fan of the finish or the decision of Nyla going over, I'm not entirely upset because Nyla could use the win herself, but I think Britt deserves more. And Lance Archer and Rey Fenix knocked it out of the park in the main event. And obviously AEW wants to push those two guys, and rightfully so. They are great in-ring workers. Now, if they could get someone behind them to talk for them, obviously you have the best in the business, Jake Roberts, with Lance Archer. Can you get someone with Rey Fenix to make him that main eventer? I don't know if Rey Fenix could do that by himself. But this show, they are building for AEW Revolution, and it's getting me more and more excited to watch that show. And maybe for the first time maybe since the AEW started, I might buy the pay-per-view before the day of because of the excitement that I have for this pay-per-view.
You want to kiss any more Tony Khan ass up for us?
It has nothing to do with kissing his ass. It has nothing to do with it. Because listen, there's been some great booking decisions, regardless of it's AEW, NXT, even WWE. I kissed Vince McMahon's ass for making that decision on Sunday with The Miz. So,
I mean, I know Tony's got a lot of money, but I didn't know he bought up the Kiss My Ass Club.
No, that's still Vince's. But
you gotta go back and watch it. You gotta listen to that Jon Moxley announcement. I'm telling you, from the very pit of his ass, straight up to his mouth.
Really? I'll have to
go back and watch it. It was so noticeable. I might go watch it just to cringe.
Why would you do that?
I told you last week. It's like driving by a car crash scene. You got to stop and look. It's like, God, this is annoying. He sounds like a buffoon, but you got to listen to it.
Yeah, I guess so. But let us know what you guys thought of AEW Dynamite and NXT in the comments below. Don't forget to share us all over social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at SCPB Podcast. Subscribe, hit that bell for notifications, and we'll talk to you on the next episode of the Squared Circle Psychobabble.